Well, this is Monday, and therefore this is the day in which I get a chance to chat to one of the wisest men in Ireland, Pat+Jude, and people can listen if they wish. Is that a reasonable description for you, Pat?
Jesus, hey, if I'm the wisest man in Ireland, I'd really be worried.
Would you have national concerns?
I'd be seriously concerned. Jesus,
A
God
lot of
help us.
people now, Pat, don't knock it, don't knock it. I mean, they think I'm wise as well, you know. And don't forget, I mean, they are in the hundreds and increasing. In fact, some of our chats, I was just looking at them back there. There was one we did on the Bobby Story funeral,
Yeah,
and there was one we did in something else. I can't think what it was, but it was into the thousands. Into
yeah,
the thousands. So
there you go.
there are people with good taste still left in the
Uh,
world.
and we started
Okay.
off with two.
Huh?
We started off with two. Me and you.
And they're still there. They're still there
They're
despite
still-
everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So your eye has been caught by a number of things this week, Pat, or over the weekend. One of them was Mr. Donald Trump and the
Aye.
danger in which he now stands. Do you want to talk a wee bit about that?
Jude, so I find American politics endlessly fascinating, Jude, because it seems so insane, and I mean totally insane. Donald Trump, he's basically he pulled every stunt on the sun, yet it's almost as if people have got sort of something in front of their eyes that you don't see. Like he stiffed every contractor he ever worked with. He didn't pay taxes. The numerous people who are around him have gone to jail or have been on trial. He's now, by the way, the latest one is apparently he's expected to get arrested tomorrow I think it's the New York District Attorney because of this $167,000 payment to the porn star Stormy Daniels.
Pat, could you
Yes.
just hesitate for a moment and take in that name, Stormy Daniels?
What a great name.
The Guardian describes her, incidentally, as an adult film actor and director.
Yeah.
I thought all the movies I've watched have been for adults.
She's a porn sergeant.
Oh, okay, right.
Anyway,
So do you think they're going to arrest him?
Jude, I think they might. Jude, he's got away with so much. But hey, it's going to be talk about. I was going to use a word there, but talk about cleavage. Jeez, and America split down the middle on this one.
Yeah.
I hope you got that pun.
I got that one. I'm
Anyway.
sorry, that went up my head.
But Jude, if he's arrested, the outcome, the outworking of that's going to be unbelievable because he has got people believing that he is the second coming, that he's out to save America. In fact, Jude, he's used this term to take back, telling people if he's arrested to come out to the streets and protest to take back their country. Jude, this man's a con man. He's a crook. I think everybody knows he is. Yet he's almost got. It's almost like a cult. The people who believe in Trump think he is unbelievable and that he's the second coming. He's here. He's come to save us all.
Well, I think I tend to agree, but I think in the circumstances, for that very reason, I don't think they should arrest him. Because if they arrest him, they're going to make him a martyr to the backwoodsmen.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, did you think there was much falling away of loyalty to Ian Paisley when he spent that 6 months in jail? Way back in the
No.
day? If anything,
I
it
would,
in fact ignited
but
it.
here's the thing, if they don't arrest him, what they're clearly saying is that there are certain people above the law that he can get away with it. Judy, by the way, there are people on Fox News who are still saying that the riots at the Capitol buildings on January 6th, 2 years ago, was no big deal. I'll
But
tell you
Pat,
this much.
I have a little, if you just forgive me for a minute now to interrupt. I have some doubts about that invasion of the Capitol as being an insurrection. Now, I'm not saying it was a good thing. I think it was a very bad thing.
No,
It
I
was
don't.
disgusting.
No, Jude, but hold on, Jude, you're deliberately. I don't think it was an insurrection, but it was an attack on the Democratic.
Oh, it was, yeah. That I will accept. But some people talk about it as Trump's effort, to overthrow the government. I mean, if I was going to overthrow the government, I wouldn't send a bunch of idiots like those guys. And I mean,
No.
some of them had weapons, all right, but I mean, it was sort of daft. You would never have an
Well, but
army like
but
that.
here's the point: had they got Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence and Okay, it's all supposition because it didn't happen. But had they got them and they were found dead afterwards, go and tell me what would have happened then.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. They were dangerous people and bad people, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't think we should elevate it to the point where it is an insurrection.
They were intent on harm, and they intended to hang Mike Pence, and I think they would have done it had they been able to get him. So I don't underestimate it either.
I just thought they were an unorganized rabble.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you say
With
they
some
weren't.
nasty people among them. And of course,
Yeah,
you're quite right. Trump, of course, had a link to them, and Trump encouraged them to do what they did.
yeah,
And he's now encouraged them to do something similar if he's arrested. But that's why
yeah.
I'm saying they shouldn't arrest him. You don't, I'm sure, I'd be amazed now if the authorities don't have a range of sanctions they could apply to Trump if he's found guilty. I mean, it doesn't. I'm sure it's not
No,
an
no,
automatic jail sentence. There could be all sorts
yeah,
of
but
things.
yeah, but there's one delicious irony. Apparently, Trump's down in Florida, and apparently he refuses to sort of come to New York. He stays in Mar-a-Lago. The person who will have to order his extradition is Ron DeSantis, who will be his main, who will be his main contender for the Republican nomination for presidency.
Yeah,
So
Ron DeSanctimonious,
DeSantis,
as he called him.
he's a sanctimonious bollocks as well. So I'd love to know, what's going to happen, Jude, if he is put in that position. Will he refuse to extradite Trump? Will he extradite Trump? And no matter what way he comes at it, it could be in bother.
Yeah. I personally don't think that Trump is going to be the candidate for the Republicans this time. Do you?
I don't think so. No, Jude, there's so, like, you would hope the sensible people are out there again. But Jude, Americans, I listen to even some quite intellectual people. There's a guy called Larry Donnelly. He's a Democrat. He lives in Ireland. I think his relatives were the Donnelly visas, or what we call them, visas.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was on quite recently with a guy who was a professor who was a total Trumper. And these people believe America first, that America should look after itself, and they should should isolate itself from the world and so on. And basically, but they want the cake, but they don't want to pay the price of the cake. Most of the big companies in the world, are all the big tech companies, and the cultural imperialism of American airbase. America gets more out of their sort of preeminence and across the world. They're not doing it for nothing. They are making billions. Their companies are making billions. Their trade and all the rest. So this is not something America first. America first is because that means big trade for America.
Yeah. But there's always been that sort of isolationist tendency in America as well. There's a part of them that drives them to develop their empire all over the world. And they have an empire all over the world, what's more. But there's also a part of them that wants to withdraw from the petty wars and squabbles and so on that are going on in Europe. And that's what Trump was about. That's why Trump was saying, I want our soldiers home. And, I could see how even a thinking American might say, well, is it really such a good idea to have our soldiers in Afghanistan? Is it really such a good idea to have them in Iraq?
I can understand that. And I can understand too, a lot of Americans saying, why should our sons die? But then they invaded Libya and helped themselves to the oil. They were involved in Iraq. Their track record. There was an American guy on yesterday on social media. I was chatting to him for a wee while, and another thing about Trump, or not Trump, that Reagan as one of the great presidents. And we were chatting about Jimmy Carter. Apparently, he's on his last days, and the comparison. Like Reagan denuded the unions, looked after the rich. Did a lot of things, and he's considered a great president. You sort of go, well,
Well, you see, he knew the buttons to press. Like he knew
exactly.
one of the phrases he's famous for is "There you go again."
Yeah.
That really sums it up for me. Those words have no meaning. They have no relevance. It's just a mocking expression to knock his opponent off his stride.
But there you go again. It's bloody well meaningless, and it's not any way profound. If that's Jesus was not. It wasn't Abraham Lincoln, was he?
It worked, though. It worked. That one of them, they say, that one really won him the debate.
It shows how vacuous American politics is. A vat is what a man's remembered for, being a great president.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. He was. No, I have no time at all for Ronald Reagan. But I find this interesting, this tendency. On the one hand, America wants to go out and act as the world's policeman. You know, ever since Vietnam, before that probably. So many countries has gone to and said we're in charge here, or we're going to have a regime change here, and in South America too, of course. And on the other hand, there's those who want to say, to hell with the rest of the world, let's just keep everything American in America.
Yeah.
If you were an American, Pat, which would you sympathize with more?
I think, well, yeah, you know, I suppose you could ride two horses there, but I think America's role, they're the biggest democracy in the world, and I think considering the fact they've interfered for so long, that there's a sort of onus on them to trade with the rest of the world and so on, and vice versa. Now, Jude, but you have to do it some sort of moral way, and I don't. The whole thing about America now, I think it's gone down to there seems to be, you know, no values anymore. Like, would you trust Trump? Would you trust DeSantis? Would you trust anybody in the Republican Party? I sure wouldn't.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't either, but I don't know if that's really much change. I mean, most people acknowledge the fact that JFK got the presidency because his father bought it for him.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
yet we revere JFK and we say the wonderful man he was and the good things he did and how proud we are he was Irish. So
Yeah.
I think politics was always a bit of a
Well,
flimsy moral foundation.
Aye. Obama, 8 years, not a single scandal, you know, and all that. Clinton, in fairness, tried to do the right thing, though there were a couple of scandals about him. Who else? You know, a couple of the Democratic, Jimmy Carter was a man of total honor, and so on. So you hope somewhere that the cream rises to the top, but unfortunately, it's not always the case in America.
There's other things that rise to the top as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't believe he'll be arrested, Trump. And I, like yourself, I would see what happened in the Capitol as being pretty disgusting and dangerous for some of the lawmakers like Nancy Pelosi, but not an insurrection. I mean, if it is an insurrection, it must be one of the worst in history. Okay, let's move on to another darling man, and that is Mr. Putin, Vladimir Putin. Your point, you're zeroing in, I think, on the fact that he has been declared a war criminal.
All right. Do you know what I'm interested in that? Because I wonder, does that make the situation in Ukraine worse or better? You know, does Putin, I think I have nowhere to go. I'm really stuck here. So I can't travel like he'll probably be able to visit states that are aligned to, you know, like Belarus and maybe China. But after that, he's in the deep doo-doo because he can't travel anywhere else. Now, I was trying to figure out what impact would that have in the war. Like, he won't be able to travel anywhere to make the peace negotiations, will he? They'll have to come to him. But the other thing, Jude, I was thinking, what about the impact in Russia itself? Do people see him now as the victim? Or do the Russians start to think, wait a minute, this guy, we're getting more and more isolated every day. The sanctions are impacting on Russia, like the oil and so on, and gas was covering for a while. But does it reach a stage and they're saying, unless this guy goes, we're going to just get more and more. No, they can't participate in sport. They can't participate in politics. Their trade's getting hit. Is he worth it all? And the final thing, I'd say, apparently the sanctions, because of this International Criminal Court arrest, any sanctions imposed in Russia cannot be lifted until he is handed over.
Yeah. I think it was a bad move. I really think it was a bad move by the West to declare him a war criminal and, you know, insist that he'd have to be all his life, that'll be with him, you know. That's really, A, it's backing him into a corner, and B,
that's what I mean.
If you were Russian, you know, if you're the leader of your country, you might have doubts about him, but the enemy, so to speak, or at least the rest of the world says he's a criminal. You're telling me that my leader is a criminal. I mean, we heard an awful lot of that kind of thing, you know, here over the course of the Troubles. Remember Maggie Thatcher? A crime is a crime is a crime, or was it murder?
Murder is murder is murder. Yeah, I'm sure we mentioned it last week. Joseph Borrell, the EU foreign minister, was told he couldn't get an official visit to Russia because he equated the absolute nerve of him. IDF killings with Palestinian killings. Israelis said there was no comparison between their killings and Palestinian killings, despite the fact that the Israelis are killing a hell of a lot more Palestinians. And you know, the hypocrisy and the arrogance that And so you're right. The Russians are. I was thinking the Russians are probably saying, "Wait a minute, this guy is standing up for us. We're getting encircled by the West, by NATO. He's trying to claim back the motherland for us, and now they've made him an international criminal and so on. So we just keep on fighting. So he's sort of backed into a corner, to use your term.
It doesn't seem to be a smart move. The other thing is, that this international, ICC, what is it? The International Criminal Court, is there? Or something like that.
International Criminal Court.
It has got a tangled history, because I gather that, I'm subject to correction, but I do know one source that has said that the US, George W. Bush said the US did not recognize the right of the ICC court to sit in judgment over the US and its allies.
Yeah.
So clearly, when it suits America, they go with the ICC, as in this case, but in other cases, they've no right to tell us what.
Joe Biden, I saw him on yesterday. He said that America didn't recognize the ICC, but he says this sends out a very strong signal. Russia doesn't recognize it either, and neither does India. Because the Americans, because of what was going on in Iraq, the ICC's no member Abu Ghraib and all the rest. There was a chance that some Americans would get arrested, so the Americans refused to recognize the court.
Yeah. In ways, there's a similarity between this and the last time we did, Pat, about Trump, because if they were to imprison Trump, I think it would stoke the fires among his followers. And likewise, if they by issuing this warrant for the arrest, so to speak, dead or alive, of Vladimir Putin, it's really classifying him as a criminal, and it's stoking the fires. The other thing is this thing about him not being able to travel, Pat. I know we're used to our leaders traveling all over the place, but we tend to think about America or maybe Strasbourg. But Russia, I don't know if you feel all that constrained. Russia is a very big country, and so is China.
And it's what I think when the full Russia many years had someone like 17 different time zones. So I don't think he's going to be sort of
claustrophobic,
is he?
No, I don't think so. I'm kind of surprised at why they did it, but there you go. And most people bought into it. I frankly think it's a mistake. Okay, let's move from politics to sport. And there was some sport over the weekend. Now, I have to put my hands up and say I didn't watch the rugby, not steadily. I watched a wee bit of it at the beginning. Did we talk about this before?
No, we didn't. No,
okay. I watched a wee bit of it, but at that stage, the English were beating them 6-0 or something like that, 9-0. And I thought, oh God, it'd be too painful to watch it. But as it turns out, it was a glorious victory.
It was Do you know what it came? Remember, Enoch Powell said, "All careers end in failure." Now he was chatting about politics, but I was sitting watching it at the end of and Johnny Sexton. I thought to myself, "Here's a guy. He started off, and he was very much underrated. He wasn't Brian O'Driscoll, and he wasn't Paul O'Connell, and he wasn't Rory Best. He was sort of way down the pecking order." And then I sat and watched there on Saturday, in front of someone like 60,000 people. He scored the points that basically nearly won the game. He's now scored more points in rugby in the Six Nations than any other player. He was captain of the team that won the Six Nations for the first time in 75 years on Irish soil. And I thought, and his children were there and his wife was there, and I presume if his parents are alive, they were there. How much better can it get? 60,000 people cheering you on. And, Jude, the rest of his life was going to be an anticlimax.
Exactly. I was thinking that, So Liam O'Whelan or somebody said that about the war against the Black and Tans. He said it was an exciting and a kind of a glorious time to live, but it was a bad preparation for the humiliation of life for the next 40 years or so. I think Sexton did a fantastic job, especially since he was following. Wasn't the kicker or whatever they call him? Wasn't it Ronan O'Gara?
Ronan O'Gara had up until last week. I think Ronan O'Gara had the record, and Sexton equaled it the last week. So all he had to do was kick 1 point this time. By the way, you can't kick 1 point in rugby, but all he had to do was kick 1 point, and I think he had it. So the first time on Saturday when the ball went over between the posts, that he had the record.
Well, being a sort of what would you call it, a nerd about politics, I'm kind of more favorably disposed towards Ronan O'Gara than I am towards Johnny Sexton. I mean, Johnny's a fine young man, but Ronan O'Gara met Queen Elizabeth II, and he stood there with his hands in his pockets. But wasn't very respectful to Her Majesty.
Yeah,
And actually, that raises a very interesting point, I think. Should sportsmen or people who aren't in the field of politics or government or whatever, should they be taking political stances? Because take, for example, Gary Lineker. There's another footballer in this case. He made a stand about homelessness and said it was, wasn't it homelessness? Yeah. And he said it was bad.
Asylum seekers, not home.
Asylum seekers. It's Sally Rooney today. Sally Rooney, the novelist in the Irish Times, has a long article condemning the homelessness that's going on. So I'm torn between two stools here, really. On the one hand, should they not stick to their, the cobbler stick to his last? Or isn't it good that people who've got a platform are using it for what we would see as good causes?
Jude, I think as human beings, whether I agree with you or disagree is irrelevant. We've all got the right to air our opinions, and we've all got a right to a view. Well, who was the guy that said, while I profoundly disagree with your what you're saying, I'll defend to the death your right to say it? No, Jude, that's my motto. Jude, I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. But see, the day we're sort of saying you're not allowed to give you because it might upset somebody or somebody doesn't like it or whatever. See, I think that's an unbelievably dangerous path to go down.
Well, there's a lot of it about, I think.
Say again?
I say there's a lot of it about, though. The point, though, that I would emphasize would be that Gary Lineker, Sally Rooney, Johnny Sexton, Ronan O'Gara, they all are well-known public figures. And therefore, if they say something about the society or about politics, it's going to get attention in ways that, dare I say it, you or I would not get attention if we said something.
So be it, Jude. Like Gary, and I'm very aware that there's downsides to this as well. But that goes with a third. Gary Lineker pointed out something that anybody with a shred of compassion, a shred of common sense, to treat people who take their children on a wee boat to row across the Atlantic to claim they are, evil people and to try and transport them to Rwanda and so on and sort of vilify them and so on. Jude, whatever happened to humanity? Jude, I think anybody at all that's in any way decent would 100% agree with Gary Lineker. I don't see how anybody could disagree with him.
Well, somebody made the point that if Gary Lineker had made a tweet that said, I really think the government's policy is terrific, I'm totally in support of it, that he wouldn't have got the same positive response. I tend to be, let's say, I tend to be impressed by people who speak out, famous people who speak out in terms that I agree with. I'm not so sure I would be so hot on it if they were disagreeing with me.
I will give you an unequivocal guarantee, and I bet you'll sort of accept it. Had he said, Suella Braverman has done the decision she's taken is a very brave one, and I support her 100%. Had he put that in a tweet, it wouldn't even got him. He would not have been sort of let go or told to stand back by the BBC. It wouldn't have got any traction at all. But by the way, Braverman went out over the weekend to Rwanda. She didn't invite the BBC, she didn't invite the Daily Mirror, she didn't invite the Guardian, and she didn't invite Independent. She invited the Sun, the Daily Telegraph. I can't remember the Mail and somebody else. Can't remember the Express. Now, you'd go and tell me, all the right, fascist types, to give support. And there's a photographer I saw it this morning, laughing full mouth, outside one of the facilities that people are going to be sent to in Rwanda. Like if you support that sort of thing, I think you should go and have a look at your conscience. Yeah,
she said that her dream was the thought of these people being on board a plane heading for Rwanda. It's sort of ugly. But I'm still interested in the idea of people using their platform, that is non-political to make political points. I'm trying to think of somebody name a few people who are famous but not sports people, but are very well known, like Colm Tobin, for example. There's an international novelist, or that
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah. Should they be speaking out? Because there's always plenty of bad things happening in the world that you could draw attention to, like hunger and like oppression, and there are countries in the world where people are dying.
No, Jim, I don't think that's the argument. I think what you started off saying was, have they the right to speak out? Yeah, they have the right to. It's whether they choose to, whether they do or don't. Like, dude, there's certain people, I know certain people wouldn't hardly comment on, if it's a good day or a bad day. No, they won't even comment on the weather. That's their choice. But you start off asking the question, should they? Jude, I think the basic thing is, Jude, would you fancy, and now to think of it, you've been sort of censored a few times. Tell me something. Do you think that somebody else has the right to express opinion, but they should deny you your right to do it?
Oh, yeah. I think you put your finger on it there. I have to admit that the thing that really, really riles me is that they're saying certain people must be listened to and certain other people, how dare they? How dare they express an opinion, especially if it doesn't agree with me?
Yeah, that's the thing. And the whole concept of freedom of speech is the right for everybody. Dude, as long as it's civil and as long as it's not illegal and you're not encouraging people to murder somebody, you're entitled to speak in a civilized way and make your points the same as anybody else.
Well, one of the people that you mentioned who had made a point was Sam McBride, where he was talking about this deal that they're arriving at, and he's concerned. I don't know if he was he concerned about a whole lot of plants?
Yeah, I read it in the Belfast Telegraph on, I think it was Saturday, and he said,
"This is not a mole you're talking about. This isn't, a plant in the sense of a mole within a political party."
No. He was sort of getting on a sort of high horse, but they are not saying what the Windsor framework is actually. I've gone through it. I'm plowing through the detail of it, and certain plants will not be allowed in. Nothing. Wait a minute. So we do, and Ballymena or Portadown or Ahahal or anywhere else you can think of, they're going to reject the Windsor framework document on the basis that there are plants, some of these exotic plants that they have never seen, never heard of, and all the rest of it, but they're going to turn down this agreement on the basis that they can't get these plants. That's good. Now, Jesus, by the way, I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? Oh, Jim, let me run this by you, Dr. Collins. Jamie Bryson said, urging rejection of he said, it treats Northern Ireland as part of the EU territory. It doesn't. Embeds an economic United Ireland. It doesn't. Hands law making powers to a foreign entity. It doesn't. And what extends a customs border on the Irish Sea. And so far, I think what is the EU say? Only 3% of EU law remains. And Jude, let me repeat this, and if you've repeated it many times, until there's a poll where the people of Northern Ireland vote to leave Britain. This constitutional position does not change. It does not embed economic in Ireland. It might increase trade, but
there's something really funny about that idea of these exotic plants being turned away.
Yeah.
See the guy saying, "Oh, my plants, my precious plant! What, you won't let me in? Oh, freedom for the plant!" I think. Wonder how would they react if Johnny Adair was turned away? Wasn't Johnny Adair trying to get in from Britain? Would they feel strongly that they should be allowed to come? Actually, I think what the whole thing comes down to is that they have this sense, and I think I have sympathy with this. This unionist fears that the whole raison d'etre of the state is slipping gradually away, and it's most dramatically embodied in Michelle O'Neill. First, that's why there's such reluctance to go back. Well, I've said this 100 times. There's such reluctance to go back into Stormy because there's going to be I'm going to say a Fenian, but they will have a Republican first minister, and that's very hard to take. The thing is this: has the DUP thought, what alternative is there?
Yeah.
No? They say, we're not going to take this break that you're offering us. We're not going to take this framework that you're offering us. What exactly are you going to do? There really is no way out of this.
Yeah, but that's the point. And I don't think I haven't really heard one, and that includes people like Mark Carruthers and William Crawley and people like that, asking the DUP, right, spell out your alternative. Spell out, rather than saying no. Right, it's worth putting on the record again. The EU and the UK have signed up to this, and it's quite obvious. And there's also some legislation coming this week about this Stormy break.
Yes.
Right. It's quite obvious Rishi Sunak wants a deal with the EU, and they're really working closer together after some rocky couple of years. The Americans, Chuck Schumer said the last day, again on the record, there will be no trade deal with the UK if in any shape or form the Good Friday Agreement is harmed. And if they don't sign the Windsor Declaration, there's a fair chance that the Americans will view that as damaging to the Good Friday Agreement. So, Jude, and this is one wee small party and a one wee small part of the United Kingdom. So, and if they turn this down and they have no alternative to offer, I would love to know, you could argue this is doing more damage to the unionist position in the UK than anything the Provost has ever done.
Oh, well, it certainly isn't increasing their sort of their fan club. As you see, once you start listing them, you see the absurdity of their position. America, EU, British government, Southern government, the majority of political parties in the North. Yeah. There's everybody's out of step with our wee Johnny. And yet our wee Johnny says, you guys want to get into step with me. I just think it's a road to nowhere. But I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not a unionist. I'm happy. If they want to do that, that's just fine and dandy with me, although it's a bit cruel because it does have an effect on people's education and people's health, etc., while the DUP remain outside. It's a wonder, as a moral party which was founded by a clergyman, that wouldn't be something that would concern them. There must be people dying because there isn't a local government.
There has to be people not getting treatment. Imagine you had cancer several months ago, and you haven't been able to get an appointment. You haven't, Jude, how many people are dying, maybe even from heart attacks and stuff like that they could have had it detected earlier. Jude, I was listening to a doctor in the Republic some time ago because of overcrowding and people not being able to get beds. He said people will be dying because of this. Jude, had those people maybe got earlier intervention, they would have said, oh, wait a minute, this guy needs this or that woman needs that, and so on. Like what's happening in the North? Jude, what's the biggest waiting list anywhere in Britain? The longest waiting lists anywhere in Britain, and so on. And a lot of GPs are going missing. People are not getting treated at hospital. Even some of the hospitals are putting up full up signs, and that's only in recent years.
And that's just health, I mean, schools have similar problems. Anyway, Pat, that's really us. We've just over a minute left. Can you think of something to cheer people up? Have you seen any good movies lately?
I was watching yesterday afternoon after I finished my column for the Daily Mirror. I was sitting watching the Manchester United match, and I've never seen 3 people getting sent off as quick as the match.
Yes, that was hilarious. That was hilarious.
And there's a part of me said, no wonder the manager of Fulham got very annoyed, because he probably said, here we go again. Manchester United, every time something goes wrong, he got sent off. The centre forward got sent off, and Willie M got sent off, and especially but someone like a minute.
Yeah, which is less than we have. Okay, Pat, thank you very much for that. We'll talk to you again. So enjoy your week.
Okay, sir.
Okay.